It was a scene that perfectly encapsulated the absurdity of the last 2 years in K-pop. On February 25, 2026, dozens of reporters packed into a venue in Seoul, expecting answers, maybe a fight, or at the very least, a coherent explanation for the latest twist in the never-ending saga between Hee jin and Hybe. Instead, they got 6 minutes of a prepared statement read from a laptop and a CEO who literally walked out the door without taking a single question. The reaction in the room was immediate and visceral. You could hear the shuffling of feet, the confused murmurs, and then the shouting. One journalist, clearly at the end of his rope, yelled out, "Have you ever seen a press conference like this?" while others laughed in disbelief. It wasn't just frustration. It was the sound of a relationship between the media and a public figure completely collapsing. To understand why the mood was so toxic, you have to look at the lead-up. This wasn't just another bad day. It was the culmination of a pattern that has exhausted everyone involved. The notice for this event went out the day before, which, believe it or not, is considered polite in Min Hee-jin's world. If you remember her first explosive press conference back in April 2024, that one was announced on the very day it happened. A breach of etiquette so severe it basically screamed emergency. Reporters canceled their lives to rush over there, only to be treated to a spectacle of raw emotion and war. Then came the second one in May 2024. Again, same-day notice. By the time the third press conference rolled around in January, she didn't even show up, sending her lawyer instead. So when the fourth conference was announced for February 25th, the media was already running on fumes. But they showed up because, well, this is the biggest story in town. But the disrespect didn't end with the short notice. On the day of the event, the schedule called for a 1:45 p.m. start, but Min Hee-jin arrived 6 minutes late. When she finally walked in, slightly out of breath, her excuse was almost comical. She claimed she had gone into the wrong building and had to walk over. It felt like a metaphor for the entire conflict, a sense of direction that always seems slightly off. She approached the podium, opened a laptop decorated with a sticker for her new company, OK Records, and told the room that she wouldn't be freestyling today because her message was too important. She asked them to listen carefully, and for 6 minutes she read from a script. No drama, no off-the-cuff remarks, just a monologue. Then came the moment that broke the camel's back. As soon as she finished the last sentence, she closed her laptop, stood up, and walked off stage. No Q&A, no clarifications. The room was stunned. These were journalists who had cleared their schedules, traveled across the city, and prepared questions about the critical put option ruling and the future of New Jeans. They were left sitting there, wondering why they had even been called. Her lawyer, Kim Tae-woo, stepped up to the mic to try and manage the fallout, but it was too late. When he suggested that questions be sent via email, the room erupted. He reportedly told them, "If that's how you see it, then that's how you see it," which did absolutely nothing to calm the storm. It was a historic moment for all the wrong reasons. 6 minutes late, 6 minutes of reading, and then gone. This bizarre behavior becomes even more suspicious when you actually analyze the content of what she said. Her big announcement was what she framed as a peace proposal. She declared that she was willing to give up the 25.6 billion won, roughly $17 million, that she stood to receive from her court victory against Hybe. She said she would exchange that money for a different value, the end of all lawsuits. She claimed she couldn't bear to watch the New Jeans members be dragged between the stage and the courtroom any longer. On the surface, to her diehard supporters, this might look like a noble sacrifice, a mom protecting her daughters. But industry insiders and legal analysts saw right through it almost immediately. Here is the crucial context that makes that offer look less like a sacrifice and more like a bluff. Just recently, the court accepted Hybe's request for a stay of execution. That's a technical legal term, but what it means in plain English is that while Min Hee-jin won the first trial, Hybe doesn't have to pay her that 25.6 billion won right now because they have appealed. The money is essentially frozen while the legal battle continues, which could take months or even years. So offering to give up money that she can't currently access anyway, that isn't a sacrifice. That's offering to trade a box of air. It's a strategic move that attempts to make her look like the bigger person while actually costing her nothing in the immediate term. Furthermore, her sudden pivot to protecting the members and their families rings incredibly hollow when you look at what her own legal team was saying just 1 month ago. During the third press conference in January, her lawyers were busy insinuating that a New Jeans member's family, specifically targeting Danielle's uncle, was involved in some shady tampering scheme with outside investors. They essentially tried to cut off the tail to save the body, painting the family as the problem. Now, a mere month later, she's back on stage claiming she wants to end lawsuits to protect those same families? You can't have it both ways. You can't accuse a parent of corporate sabotage on live TV and then turn around a few weeks later and say you're the guardian of their peace. The contradiction was so stark that several media outlets immediately published articles pointing out the flip-flopping, asking if she views New Jeans as daughters to be protected or liabilities to be blamed depending on the news cycle. The atmosphere of confusion wasn't just limited to the press room. The timing of this event raised serious questions about her actual intentions. Why call a physical press conference for a statement that could have been emailed? Why the rush? Rumors have been swirling that this was a desperate attempt to control the narrative after a few rough weeks. The Korean Music Content Association had recently criticized her, and a scathing dispatch report had surfaced with new allegations. She was losing ground in the court of public opinion, and the stay of execution meant the financial lifeline she was counting on was just out of reach. So she needed a new headline. She needed to look like a visionary leader, which might explain the weird random references in her speech to the Kospi surpassing 6,000 and the revision of the commercial act. It felt like she was trying to sound like a high-level executive, but it came across as disconnected rambling. While Hee Jin was staging her chaotic monologue, the other side was making moves that spoke much louder than words. In a perfectly timed strike, Adore, the company she used to run, released a sleek 2-minute brand film titled The Room Hunt on the exact same day. They even updated their logo. It was a quiet but brutal statement. The company is moving forward. The film focused on creativity and future artists, signaling that Adore is bigger than one individual. It was a masterclass in contrast. On one side, you had a woman reading from a laptop, refusing questions and offering illusionary money. On the other, you had a polished corporate entity releasing a vision for the future. It highlighted the stark reality that while one side is fighting in the past, the industry is marching on. The public reaction has been just as polarized as you'd expect, but there's a noticeable shift in the wind. Her most vocal supporters are still pushing the narrative that she is the victim of a corrupt system, flooding comment sections with praise for her bravery. But the general audience? They are exhausted. The audience isn't dumb, as the saying goes. People are seeing through the theater. They see a woman who claims to want peace but stages conflicts. They see someone who claims to value artists but holds press conferences that make journalists question their professionalism. The fact that she is launching a new company, OK Records, and planning a new boy group suggests she's trying to pivot, but she's dragging the baggage of the last 2 years with her.